Because like this has happened to me more than once, right? My opponent has a not so good camera. I'm viewing it at like literally like 360p, probably even less pixels than that. It's
240 special.
it's a dark room. It's not well lit. They have a dark playmat and they're playing black slaves, so I cannot distinguish how much life they have left.
I can't distinguish if they have any life left.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, guys. It's Colin with the Sun Pirates TCG, joined today by my co-host Mohammed.
How's it going, guys?
And today we are doing our next episode of the It Connects podcast. So, if you didn't already see from the title, I don't know why you clicked on it otherwise, but today we're talking about our biggest pet peeves in the One Piece card game community. So, not to be overly disparaging to anyone, obviously a lot of these aren't really that deep, aside from like, I hate it when people cheat, I guess, but that's not really that's not a pet peeve, that's just terrible. Yeah, exactly.
Grinds our gears.
What
gets
grinds
on our nerves
your
a little.
gears?
But yeah, just as a forewarning, we love the One Piece community. It's very near and dear to my heart. I love everyone. They're so welcoming. They're so nice. But like, man, some of these really get on my nerves.
Yeah.
Specifically, a buddy of ours places his Dawn upside down like he's playing Dragon Ball. Like, come on, man. I know what they do. You don't have to show me they say plus 1,000. Like, what's the point?
Oh, you're talking about like I know some people that do it in Magic too, where they put their lands upside down like this.
Yeah, like that's how they're like showing it to me. Like, why? Come on.
I don't know. Have you? So like obviously some of these pet peeves aren't necessarily exclusive to One Piece. Have you ever played against a One Piece player that puts their Dawn like in front of their characters, like a Magic player? You know how some Magic players put their lands in front of creatures?
Yeah, so I haven't had that happen to me, but that would get to me. I can't. I've had that happen in other games, like in Magic, where like Colin said, they'll put their. So in Magic, the layout is similar to One Piece, where it's like your Dawn / lands go at the bottom, and then all your dudes go above them. But some people, because you can't mix up your lands and your dudes, will put their lands at the top and then their dudes at the bottom. It's like, nah, that's not how it should be. Don't you put your Dawn up at the top, man? Keep them where they belong.
Or like speaking of like bad positioning, one pet peeve I have, and we're just kind of gonna be rattling off with these, is when someone puts their leader in a place that is not the designated spot. So like, usually you put your leader in the center of your playmat, but some people like to put it up next to their characters, and I hate it because it almost makes it like it's very misleading for like when you hit your character limit of 5. And then sometimes, I even see players that do it screw up, and then they like play over their random Suru or something when they're playing a new character.
Because they think their leaders count. I
Yeah,
mean,
because they see like 5 cards in the front row.
I'm kind of whatever on that, because it's like it can still attack, like characters can attack, like it's still there, but like I don't know, man. That's like whatever.
I don't know, maybe going to extremes, but I'm just worried that someone's gonna like play over like the Helmeppo and put it in the graveyard, and then they think they can play Moria to bring it back when they're not supposed to.
But like that, I think it's the responsibility of both players to be like, hey man, that's not a legal play. You can't just trash your Helmeppo like that, right? Like, it's both players' job to maintain the board state.
I guess, but again, it's just like this little misleading things, like just things that may potentially misrepresent the board state.
My one of my big ones is like when you announce absolutely everything. So like I've had people saying because it just like eats so much extra time for my opponent to go, I'm going to tap 8 Dawn and cast Gecko Moria. I'm going to use Gecko Moria's effect. Using the effect of Gecko Moria, I'll play 4 cost Rob Lucci and 2 cost Helmeppo. I'll play Helmeppo rested. I use the effect of Helmeppo for shrinking
Oh, like they literally
X
narrate
character
everything
by
that's happening.
3.
Yeah.
I will use the effect, like, just like listing
Yeah.
every single thing, listing all 3 cards they put back with Lucio. Like, I know what Gecko Moria does, man. I know that he costs $8. You don't have to say you're paying 8. If you're not paying 8, I'm gonna tell you that you had to already.
Yeah, I haven't had that happen in One Piece yet. I've definitely had it happen in other card games, like I guess like Yu-Gi-Oh or Cardfight Vanguard. Oh, this was actually especially fun in Yu-Gi-Oh before because I've had it happen, and it was so excessive to the point that we were like close to going into time because the guy spent way too long explaining what every card did. Especially Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's like a paragraph on every card.
But like that's the thing, dude. Like you heard me, like I wasn't
Yeah.
even like going that far, but like it took him like a whole like 2 minutes to tell me the effects of his Gecko Moria when it could have taken like 30 seconds. Like I know Gecko Moria plays a 4 and a 2.
Yeah.
Like I understand if you want to like clarify targets and declare effects, but it's like you don't have to tell me Gecko Moria is being played by me tapping 8 Dawn. Like yeah, you're tapping 8 Dawn. That's how much he costs. But I don't know, that one gets to me so bad. It's like with everything, it's like on the declaration of your attack, I will use the effect of my Bonnie leader. By paying 1 Dawn, I'm going to rest X card on your board, meaning that it is tapped now. And I'm like, dog, I get it.
Now,
Right?
would you prefer that or the opposite, where it's under communicating? Because that's what drives. I think that's what drives me up the wall more. It's like when people are just like dead silent, like radio silent when they're playing the game.
If they're like gesturing, it's fine, right? Like if it was like if someone's playing Bonnie and they like tap their 1 and then they like point at a card, I know what they intend, right?
I guess it depends on like the manner in which you do those like nonverbal things. Because I've definitely had opponents, not just in One Piece but in other card games as well, where when like they're saying pass, right, they'll just be like,
Well, yeah, I mean,
like it's like very disrespectful. They'll be like,
well, yeah, that's a different.
Yeah.
I don't think disrespect is like reasonable, right? Like be respectful to you and your opponent. Like communicate. Like if you're gonna pass turn, be like, or like something. Like be polite about it.
well, I think
Don't be like,
yeah, I feel like some people that do that probably don't even realize it's like
right.
can be taken as being rude. Like, you know, everyone has like their own everyone has their, like their own little backstory, their own disposition as far as like, you know, maybe they're just nervous, or maybe they just don't like, you know, they just don't understand that kind of like social cues to an extent.
Look, I get that, and like to each their own. It's just like I feel like there's like a minimum of communication that's required, but like there's also a maximum, right? Like there's like this like space where it's like the nice perfect amount. And if you go too low or you go too high, it's just like
Yeah,
it's bad, right?
like I had the conversation with Trevor on our previous podcast about a like a roll sharking incident involving like this is pretty like notorious with the baby Luffy and Sabo and Ace. For the Black Yellow Luffy deck, you know, you have
Right.
to like basically you have to declare that your leader's getting to plus 2000
Right.
when you activate the baby. Like, you know, it like there's a whole can of worms. You know, we don't really have to get into like whether that's right or wrong, but it's like I guess for you personally, what does it take for you to acknowledge that the leader is like plus 2000 or plus 4000?
I mean, in my experience, and I wish that this was like more accepted, it's like understand intention, right? Like there's not really a reason for them to not give their leader plus 2000,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're using the effect and it resolves successfully, I'm not gonna be like, nah man, you didn't point at your leader or declare plus 2, right? Like you and I both know that you intended to put 2000 on your leader. Like there's no other reason for you to use the bait. You're not just gonna tag out into Rocket Luffy to pop my Rogue in that matchup, or my Kuzan, or whatever 4 drops in play. just to pop it, right? Like you're doing it because it also buffs you to make it harder for me to hit you. It's like I think like, there's a minimum amount of respect you should be showing your opponent for like being in a tournament. Like they didn't get there to just like make a mistake. Like you're both trusted to play competently, right?
Yeah. So I guess like another example too, maybe a bit more simple example is the 9-drop Newgate. If someone summons 9-drop Newgate, is the leader plus 2000. If they didn't say anything, they just said, I'll play 9-gate, pass, or swing and pass. Is that leader plus 2000?
At the very least, I feel like there should be like an indication. Like we
a
both
dice or something.
There's like no reason not like. There's no reason not to, but like I feel like you should indicate, like even if you don't use a dice or something, I don't care if you indicate with a dice, because personally I hate using a dice on my leader, right? Like,
really?
So the thing is, and I'm sure a lot of you have been shown it in our matches or whatever, but I like to play with shiny cards, and like I know most dice are light or whatever, but like
the dice covers your textured card. I understand.
Well, not even that. It's like
I'm kidding.
If I just like keep doing it to like the same spot on the leader, it has the potential to like ding up the card.
That's not
right. Like if you're going like if you just keep putting it at the same spot, you might dent it. I don't know. It's just a personal like suspicion / feeling I have, so I try to avoid it if I can. But, like, I always did that, even back in the days in Set 2 when I was playing Zoro with 9-gate in it. I just did not like putting it. I'd just say, declare 9-gate effect on my leader, swing 7. It's not even for, like, the intention of, like, making my opponent forget or whatever, or making them have to remember anything. It's just... Personally, it's because I like my shiny card. I want to show more of it, and I also don't want to risk damaging it by dinking it with a dice X amount of times in a tournament, especially Black Yellow Luffy, where you're putting a dice on it, on and off of it like 4 or 5 times in a game. So
I suppose
I want at least some kind of declaration of it. Like I understand if you're playing a 9-gate, there's like no other reason you'd play him. You're not just playing a 9-10 vanilla, right?
Yeah.
I feel like intent is very important, but I also feel like you should declare something. Like every single one of the children, you have to declare to tag out. So I think that like the intent is there that you're using it right. And it doesn't take that much more to be like on like when you play 9-beard, the red Newgate, be like effect, like point at 9-gate or point at whatever, and it's like you did it. You did something. I don't need you to say any more than that. I understand what it does. Right.
Yeah. I guess ultimately, with regards to the topic of communication, like you said, there is
like there's a minimum
balance.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. There's a balance.
There's a balance, right? So like there's like a minimum level of communication. I think you should try to be verbally announcing what you're doing, as far as I play 9-drop Edward Newgate, declare effect targeting my leader. Like, right. You don't have to say against 2000, like target my leader.
Like unless I ask you what it does.
Yeah, then, exactly.
Like, unless the opponent has no idea
what it does. But like you don't have to like read like word for word the entire card, because and like not only that for like just a quality of life perspective, but also from like a competitive perspective, there is such a thing as like taking too long off of the clock, right? Like
but that's what I'm saying, right? That's my pet peeve. It's like the time is so important in these matches where they're kind of a grind fest. Yeah. It's like no one likes winning or losing to the clock.
Like if you're playing the Lucci Mirror, right? It's like
exactly
someone plays Moria and they declare like everything the Moria's doing. I'm like, dude, I know what your cards do. Just like hurry up.
Yeah, I'm playing the mirror. I know what your cards do. Save us the time.
It's like we got 5 minutes left on the clock. Back. Yeah.
You're not gonna appreciate me being like, I use Tempest Kick, I use Tempest Kick, swing 5, Moria, and then it's like now I burn 3 minutes and I have the Moria in play. You're gonna feel terrible.
Yeah, if I see like there's a huge stack in your graveyard, I'm just gonna be like, just point at whoever's gonna get the -3. Like you're good. Like
just resolve your effects, keep it going. Man. I get it.
Yeah.
You don't have to go, 1, 2, 3, 15, 15 in your Tempest Kick shrinks your guy. Like, I get it.
And then they play the second Tempest Kick, and then they recount their graveyard.
Yeah, it's like, I get it, dude. You had 15 the first time, now you have 16. Move on.
I was like, I wanted to make sure. I was like, yeah, obviously. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it resolves. That's fine. Resolve your card. Go. Keep it going.
I think going on to another pet peeve, and I guess this is kind of related to, is thinking too long on things that are obvious. Now, this might be a little bit this is a little bit subjective, because this can vary from varying levels of experience, right? Of course,
I don't know.
You know, someone that's like very new to I still feel like someone that's very new to the game, of course you're going to give them that benefit of the doubt that not everything is going to click.
If you're learning a deck, I'll give it to you. But like, if you have experience in the deck, you're just killing the clock. That's all you're doing.
I think the most egregious, and like, I mean, again, not to be disparaging towards any particular player, but this has definitely been a meme going around in the community where that category player that looks at their top life, they see a zero cost event, and then they like think for like 30 seconds on whether to put it to the bottom.
Dude,
I've seen that happen before. Maybe not.
Dude, I've literally, oh my god, I've walked around regionals and locals, and I've seen Katakuri players, and their hand is like 10 mom, 10 mom, and like 7 mom, and they're like, I don't know what to do, man. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're at 10 Dawn. You have one option. You're never playing 7 mom here.
Should I play the 7 mom to give my opponent the choice, or should I play the 10 mom to do both?
It's like you just play 10 mom, swing 5. You're never going 7 mom, swing 9. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people are wild with that. I'm like, I'm sorry, Katakuri players, but I'm sure whoever's watching this be like, oh, I'm a Katakuri player, and I don't take that long to think about playing a 10 drop. I'm good for you, okay? But like, I swear, like, when we're going through a bunch of these events, locals, even regional level, people are in the tank for just like the most mundane stuff, and it's just the most apparent when you see it in Katakuri for some reason.
Dude, it's like, there's another game where I saw their hand, and it was like 10 mom, 8 cost Katakuri. Their opponent's board was like empty because they used their Dawn to clear something, and the Katakuri had a Shirahoshi, and he was genuinely considering going Katakuri my Shirahoshi into life swing. And I'm like, just play your 10 mom, his board's empty, what's he gonna do? What do you mean? It's like, you have so few choices. It's like, it's right there, it's in your hands, you have the option, just throw it down there. Or like the Reiju player that like untaps to 8, has like Judge Sora in hand, and they're like, I don't know what to do, man. It's not clear.
I guess to take the flame away from Katakuri for a bit, there's some other ones. Like I've seen Moria players, again, varying experience levels. I get it, but I've seen Moria players opt not to summon their 8-drop Moria on their 8 or 9 Dawn turn. And I'm like, what are we doing with our life?
Like, when you have options, I'll give you that, but like, sometimes like the play is obvious, right? Like, if you're playing like Bonnie and you're at 9 Dawn and you have an Eroge in play and your hand is a 10 Dofi, some Searchers, and set 1 Captain Kid. You just play Captain Kid, you give him the Dawn, you put your blocker into play, and you untap, and your opponent's, like, feeling bad. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, you don't just, like, shove Searchers down their throat and, like, give them the extra turn of leeway, unless you just, like, you're that desperate. But it's just, like, so many decks have, like, such forward lines, it's just, like, why, man? Come on.
Yeah. It's tough. And again, for those of you watching, like, the big thing about this is, especially when you're preparing for like a regional level tournament, or even like a store championship or something, where there's like competitive level rules enforcement.
Exactly.
Practice the mechanics of your deck. Practice your deck. Practice physically, like how you're handling your cards, because like those physical mechanics and like those extra 30 seconds that you're taking on a lot of those mundane situations, it adds up, and like that is what leads a lot of matches to time when they really didn't need to go into time.
I'll admit this is probably a pet peeve for the Sun Pirates TCG. This is a very bad habit of mine, but since I like have a full set of the game and I typically like practice all of the decks so I know all of the motions, when one of the boys is trying to learn a deck, I'll just like try to rush through the motions for them so we can speed up the practice. And they're like, "No, bad. Let me practice the motion. I need to know how to do it, or I'll mess it up."
There's literally points with the rest of us where you're like over our shoulder and you like literally grab the cards out of our hand and play for us. I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
I'll be like looking at Arvin's
drive.
Moria. Arvin will like be playing Lucian. He'll be like taking the time to see a line, and I've like already seen it. I'm like, "No, Arvin, you do this, Moria, clear his board." And Arvin's like, "Come on, man, you have to let me get there."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "But it's right there. You have it in your hand. You have the clear." It's like, "I can't find it if you do that."
Or you like grab the 2 cards out of trash for the Moria for us. So like, I'm like, come on, let me drive.
Let me steer the boat. It's my boat to steer.
Let me cook, bro.
Yeah, I mean that's for me. I'll give you that one. That probably gets you guys a little bit. But
yeah, again, like just want to make that very clear. Varying experience levels, of course. If you're very new to deck, you're at locals. Like, who cares, right?
Yeah, like locals exist for you to learn a deck. That no one.
Yeah.
Well, ideally, no one's gonna sit there and flame you for trying to learn and improve, right? Like that's what people are here for. It's just like when you go to these bigger events where the clock is very important, it's like people will get mad at you.
Like when you're at higher stakes, pretty much, that's
no one is going to be happy.
Yeah.
Like if you want to play Nami, be my guest. It's a complex deck. I'm very happy for people to learn it. It adds a new dimension to the game of people having to play around these mechanics. But please do not take Nami to your first regional with no experience. No one is going to be happy. You're going to waste a lot of time. You're not going to deck out. And if you get to time and your deck's smaller and you don't have more life, you're not going to win. And you and your opponent are both going to be miserable.
That's actually a really good
it's
point
just
for
not,
Nami. Yeah.
It's just not a good time for anyone when that happens. Like, again, Nami's a very good deck. It takes a lot of skill to pilot. And, like, if you learn it and it's your playstyle, you'll have fun. But just, if you try to first time it at a regional event or a store regional or something, you're just not going to be happy.
Yeah.
You'll just see so many things later that you could have done better, and you'll get mad at yourself. And your opponents will get mad at you because you're taking 10 minutes to figure out that gavel is different than rubber band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I think another thing that really gets to me is when people ask cards in hand too much.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You'll be like, your end of my turn, I'll be to calling cards in hand, and he's like 5, and I'm like, all right, go ahead. And he draws for turn. I'm like, all right, cards in hand, calling, and he's like 6, and I'm like, all right. And they plays like a Rocket Loopy. I'm like, all right, before you resolve effect, cards in hand. He's like, come on, man.
I've had that happen to me before in regionals. Like people excessively asking me cards in it. It even happens too as I'm like doing a play and like announcing what I'm doing, and they're like literally interrupting me and talking over me. It's like, cards in hand, and I'm like, 5. You asked me like 10 seconds ago, like before I untapped my Dawn.
I played 1 card.
Yeah. Like I'll like play, like I'll draw for turn. They'll ask me how many cards in hand. I'm like 5, and then I'll play my Moria. And I'm going through my trash, and I'm like declaring like what's going on with my Moria, because it's like a few card effects that need to happen to, to like blow up their board or something. And then as I'm trying to explain what's going on, like I'm trying to decide what I'm putting to the bottom of my deck through my Lucci. They're like, cards in hand. I'm like, could you like just slow your roll for a second? Just let me finish what I'm doing. Like, and And then like the funny thing too is that that same player would ask me cards in hand, interrupt me. I would like say 4 because 5 minus 1, duh. And then I'll be continuing doing my effect, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Well, if you didn't interrupt me, you would have known what I'm targeting." So.
Or they'd be like, "Why do you have 4 in hand now?" And you have to be like, "I played 1 card. It's right there on the table."
Yeah,
5 minus 1 is 4.
Oh man, that was like.
God, I had that happen recently, and it got me so mad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what deck was I playing? It was like I was playing like it was Rob Lucci. I was playing Rob Lucci into something to test the Rob Lucci list we've been cooking for Nats, and someone I like play legitimately. I went play my Moria after they asked me 5 cards in hand, and then I'm like, all right. They're like, all right, cards in hand while resolving your Moria. I'm like 4, and they're like, why are you down a card? And I'm like, I played Moria. He's on the table. 5 minus the 1 Moria is 4. And they're like, all right, continue. And I'm like, thanks.
I've heard some horror stories where some people like that take it even further, where like the people asking cards in hand will also like say that you're stalling because it's like it's taking you too long to resolve your Moria. And I'm like, and it's like, you're literally the one wasting my time. Yeah.
I'm not the one doing the stalling.
It didn't happen to me. It happened to like it happened to a buddy of ours actually. He told me the story. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh.
It gets to me so much. It's just like, come on, man. Let me finish. Let me resolve the stack. Let me clear all pending effects, and I'll answer you. I'll tell you. You'll know before your turn starts. You can't do anything about my hand on your turn in the game right now. It's fine.
Yeah.
just give me a minute.
Oh.
Because if I'm playing a Moria and then I resolve like a Rebecca and a Search, the number of cards in my hand's gonna change. So like you asking now doesn't help you. And then at the end of the turn, you're gonna be like cards in hand. And if I say 6, you'll be like, why are you up 1 card? You played a Moria. You should be down a card. It's like, well, yeah, but my Moria played these 2 cards that draw cards, and they're like, oh, well, that's whack. It's like, cool.
Maybe they're just salty that Moria is such a good card at that point. They probably are, honestly.
Good card. Very good card.
Oh, man. What else? There's, like, going back to the whole Dawn situation, have you ever had opponents that have, like, really bad Dawn management? Maybe just board management in general, but especially Dawn management.
Yeah, it's like, I think mine is like when it takes them more than like 10 seconds to like clean up their Dawn at the start of their turn, because they just like, they're not really fluid about it. They like to like grab it one by one. Like even if they have like 5 attached to one dude, they'll just be like, all right, move 1, move 2, move 3, move 4, move 5. It's like, bro, they're all going to the same place. Just grab them. Grab it all at once.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you know what? You know what really bugs me? I don't know if you find this that deep. It's probably not that deep, but one thing I personally dislike is, when someone has like all 10 Dawn on the field,
yeah,
and they're like donning up their characters to attacks, and they count their Dawn in their hand, even though it's like all 10 Dawn, obviously, and they just hold it all in their hand, and then they just like distribute it one at a time, and like as they're swinging, they're just like holding the rest of their Dawn in their hands.
That I haven't had that happen to me, so I don't know how I feel about that.
I've seen that happen. Well,
that sounds kind of.
We have a buddy that does it. You realize that, right? Where he'll literally put like 2 Dawn on leader, swing 7, and then 1 Dawn on another guy, swing 1 Dawn on another guy, swing, and then he's holding like the rest of his Dawn in his hand, and it's like in a stack pile. I haven't noticed it.
Whoever you're talking about, you're gonna have to tell me later.
I'll tell you after.
You'll have to tell me later, because I've never noticed this.
I hate that because it takes me time to like ask him, hey, how many Dawn do you have left to work with? And it's like, yeah, I can see how many Dawn are distributed on the field, but it's just like the fact that I'm not seeing all your Dawn on the table, right?
Right.
Like I want to be able to visibly see all the Dawn.
I think my biggest thing is if it's like a deck where they could realistically minus Dawn, like if you're that's another thing. So like if people keep their Dawn in a single pile, I don't have
Yes.
their Dawn on me. So like Colin can show you, but like people who like once they're like tapping or like untapping their Dawn, they'll just leave it in a single stack.
Yeah, so they'll like put like for example, I'll have like the Zoro Juro, right? And then like I put 3 Dawn on it, but I put it in a single stack and I say swing 7.
Yeah, or like even
like,
if they're not like putting it on the card, like if it's just like back at their Dawn area, and they just instead of spreading it out, they just leave it in one pile. Especially in a deck that like Dawn minuses, it's like
yeah, like Law, right?
Yeah, like Law
or
did, or like
Reiju
does. It's like
yeah.
I want to know how much Dawn you have. I'm trying to keep track of it.
Or
it's important.
Or especially if I'm the Law player, or if I'm the Reiju player, where like my card effects are contingent on me having less Dawn than you, and I see this on the board, like Zoro Juro with like 1 Dawn. Oh, actually, joke's on you, it's Zoro Juro with 3 Dawn. You know, I guess like having more Dawn, so to speak. But yeah, it's just like things like that. I'm like, that really irks me.
It's like,
it's just like it feels like it's misrepresenting the board state.
It really does, because it's like if you tap 4 to play your Reiju, like if you Dawn minus and I didn't, like you're probably like good to resolve, but like show me that you actually tapped 4 Dawn, not just like turned a stack sideways and you're like, yep, that's 4 Dawn, man.
Oh like, yeah, like
yeah, it could be
like.
But
like how hard is it to just like leave your Dawn like just slightly fanned out like this, you know?
Yeah, like
or like
don't
or in
just
2
like
separate like you know
like yeah, like for example,
that.
like with that, like if you're playing a queen, like yeah, I trust that you have 5 Dawn to play your queen usually, but like I would like to confirm that you tapped 5 Dawn and not that you like didn't, right? Like it's not hard. Like you have a whole bottom half of your playmat. You can only have 5 characters.
Yeah. Oh man, it's like I've seen it. Like I've seen it in some of like the Japanese championship series too, like the ones that are streamed by Bandai. Like I've legit seen that some of the championship matches. Like they do it and it's like, I'm like, how is this okay? Because it's like bad TV too. Because like for me as a viewer, because of like the way the camera angle is and stuff, like I have a hard time like seeing, you know, how much Dawn is being allocated to whom, especially if it's like a deck like Law where like you're actively minusing Dawn, so
like
it's hard to keep track.
If it's not a purple deck, I can kind of get it because you won't have a way of putting them back. So like I'll just know what curve you're on and I can go off of that usually. But like if you're playing a purple deck and you're like keeping it in a stack, that's just like whack.
Yeah.
So I have a question, because like here's this. I'm going to demonstrate. You're going to have to forgive me. I have Digimon cards on me right now, so I'm going to demonstrate this with Digimon cards. I want to go grab my backpack and pull out some One Piece cards. But how do you feel about people like stacking their life like this, like diagonally? Because I like this. This isn't a pet peeve of mine. But I'll have people that like stack their life like this, or like this. I used to stack my life like this to show it was different. But like, I don't know. Do you have something that irks you with that?
To me, if it's in person, like you're right in front of me, it's not that deep. As long as, you know, because like I'm right there, it's like I can, as long as like the lighting in the room is like fine, which it should be. If I'm at like a regional or something, like more often than not, it should be fine no matter how you place it, as long as it's not something crazy like you're trying to put it in like a star shape or something ridiculous, which I'm pretty sure you're not.
You remind me of the old Dragon Ball days.
Yeah.
Back in the Dragon Ball days, I used to play Hangman with my life, and then when my dude was half-sized, he'd awaken.
I feel like you're not. I feel like you wouldn't even be allowed to do that by like current Bandai.
I mean, I never did it at like a regional or anything, but when I was playing locals, I just like.
Oh, if you're fucking.
My
with
leader,
your buddies,
my leader would be like the center, and then I'd put like 2 cards to make like each arm, and then 2 cards to make each leg. And then as I took a damage, I'd take 1 from each of the outside, and then when your leader would awaken, now he just has like 1 of each arm and 1 of each leg, and then if you lost them all, Hangman, you're dead.
I guess. With that though, now key word here that I said was in person, like offline events, right? I'm at locals, I'm at an offline regionals. Now, if we're playing online in a webcam event, that's a different story, because people have varying video quality on their webcams. So I typically don't mind if you have your life like this, where it's very distinguishable. Like you have like the border, like like these art sleeves, they have the border that you can very clearly like separate, right?
Right.
I also like it a lot when people like put like a dice over their life to like further indicate how much life they have left.
I feel like the dice is common courtesy for online.
Yeah, like I do it all the time. Now, what I don't like, if you're doing in like a straight line like this, is that if you have bad lighting, because like this has happened to me more than once, right? My opponent has like a not so good camera. I'm viewing it at like literally like 360p, probably even less pixels than that. It's
240 special.
It's a dark room. It's not well lit. They have a dark playmat and they're playing black sleeves, so I cannot distinguish how much life they have left.
I can't distinguish if they have any life left.
And like it's even worse because sometimes it's even worse because sometimes I see people like they're playing like black sleeves on a black playmat with like a shitty camera, and they put their hand like close to their life, and I'm like, what are you doing, buddy? Like,
yeah, you keep those separate.
I've seen too many of those like cheating videos to be like, well, no, just please like keep your hands where I can see them. Like keep your cards in the air, in front of like visible in frame, obviously. Like obviously not everyone intends to do that. Like I've had some opponents that just like legitimately they just don't know any better, but I'm kind of at the point now where like if all of those factors are combined, like you have a poorly lit room, you have a crappy camera, and you're playing like black sleeves on a dark playmat, and you're not like using any dice or like trying to make any sort of like helpful indication of like what's on your board, I feel like you're up to something like kind of shady, like
mischievous, devious even.
I mean, like that is my base assumption, because it's like you didn't like do the minimum. I feel like there's like a minimum effort that should be put into, and maybe like I feel like this should be more enforced as well in online events.
I think
personally,
that's fair, because like at the end of the day, there's so many people trying to get into these online events too. That's like someone who's willing to like commit to making the experience easier on everyone would 100% take your spot.
Yeah, well, it's
right.
That's the thing too. It's like it's a common courtesy, as well as it just being like, especially unfortunately in the climate we're in, where there's just been so many incidents, with people cheating,
even
getting
recently,
away with it.
like as of time of recording, like another 2 have come up recently. It's like insane.
Exactly. It's like almost every season, every round of treasure cups, every round of online regionals is like someone gets caught, or even multiple people on Reddit get caught, and it's just like, just please, if you're playing online, just be in a well-lit room, or more importantly, maybe like use a dice to put on top of your life count. Like, just
even if
something.
Like your camera's not the best, like using a dice helps a lot. Like it's just the bare minimum, right? Like some way of communicating. Like I can understand not everyone can have like a 4K camera for playing a card game, or like the best like computer setup or whatever. Like I get that. Like I want this to be accessible, but like you need dice to roll to set up for the game. Just like something to communicate, right? Yeah. I also have this question for you. Well, I guess I'll let you finish this.
Oh no,
I'll ask my question.
Okay, well, it's like I've like asked people, like I've seen people with like dice too on their mat, and like, or like on their desk or something, and I'm like, hey, can you please like use the dice to indicate like how much life you have, because it's like kind of the picture quality is like not the best from my angle, and I'm like trying to be as cordial and as like respectful as possible, and they're like, no, and I'm like,
no.
I'm like, you trying to like get away with something? Like, that's a little bit suspicious.
Always record your matches, guys.
Yes.
You are always allowed to record your match. Just as a heads up, this is a bit off topic, but you're always allowed to record your matches. You're just not allowed to publicize them without the permission of your opponent. So if you want to like turn it into like a YouTube video or something, you have to ask them. But for the purpose of your own safety, you're always allowed to record it and keep it on your records in case you have to show a judge or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyways, in a brighter news, I'll ask you this, Colin.
All right, go ahead.
Do you think that it's bad manners slash have this as a pet peeve when people like try to mislead their opponent into thinking they're playing something else at the start of the game. Like, say they have like
so?
an Enel deck box and yellow sleeves, and they're like setting up, and then they flip over a Bonnie leader. Like, do you think that's bad manners? Like, do you think that's kind of like noob trap mentality?
So for this game, it's kind of hard to say because it's like you're supposed to flip up your leader before you decide on mulligans anyway.
Right.
So to me, it's not like that deep. Like for One Piece specifically, because of that rule that you have to flip up your leader from the get go. Yeah, I wouldn't think it's that deep. I know in other card games it has been a thing, like in Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, I remember like a very old tactic that used to be used before the rules policy kind of eliminated this, where, you know, people would have their extra deck, I guess back in the day it was called fusion deck or extra deck, I forget. They would have their extra deck face up and show like Elemental Hero the Shining, and they make their opponent think, oh, he's playing Elemental Heroes or something, and then they like fake him out being like, oh, haha, I'm on Final Countdown, or like Chamber,
or like,
you know,
in more recent Yu-Gi-Oh, like they'll have a Nibiru token on the top of their like face up on the top of their thing, so their opponent thinks they're playing Nibiru.
Yeah.
But they like aren't mainboarding it, they're just trying to psych their opponent into playing around it.
Which actually, I think in Yu-Gi-Oh that's not allowed.
Correct. So they made some statements that you're not allowed to do that. But it's like, it feels a little rude, man. Like, if you're just doing it with the sole intent, like if it's your favorite character or something, like if you just absolutely love Enel, man, you go for it. But like, I've just heard so many times where people are like trying to psych out their opponent before they flip up their leader to like stun lock them a bit, so that they like have less of a chance to like think about mulligans.
For me personally, it's like when you know, like when I'm playing a match, the proverbial like beer bottle glasses kind of pop up for me, where I'm like, I don't see any sort of artwork on the playmat or on the sleeves or on the deck box or anything. You know, everything's just a monotone color to me until they flip up the actual cards on the table. That's my personal attitude. I can see how someone would get faked out by it. Also, you know, it's also, guys, if you're into like a regionals and someone refuses to flip up their leader before mulligans, they have to flip up their leader before mulligans. So
they have to flip up their leader before you decide first or second.
Yeah,
that
too.
If your leader is like the first thing that happens in the game, if they will not comply, just call a judge.
Like literally, as you take your deck out of your deck box, you're supposed to like put the leader on your playmat face up. Like
I can so again, I don't necessarily agree with this because it's like, whatever, you're going to know what my leader is if you sit across from me anyway. But there are the people who are like, I'm not flipping up my leader until my opponent is seated across from me, so I reveal as little information to the people next to me as possible. And it's like, dog, if they sit across from you, they'll know what you're playing anyway. Who cares? Like, there's no like advantage to be gained from not flipping up your leader at, like, when you sit down.
You know, like the worst thing is that like those kind of players are usually the players at like table 300 when they're like in the X4 bracket. It's like, who cares?
If it's like out of like, I want to like if it's out of like a sense of laziness and you don't want to unpack your deck box period until your opponent's seated across from you, yeah, I'll give you that. Like, it saves you the cleanup if they don't show up. But like, if you're like 1-0 in a tournament already, I would expect your opponent to show up. I wouldn't just sit there wasting time, because like the sooner you get set up, the more time you have to play usually, right?
Exactly.
Because like if your setup eats into the clock, you also feel bad. I feel like my pet peeve is anything that eats into the clock.
Honestly, that's true. Just like unnecessary time wasting. Right?
There's just so many ways to like lose time, and it just like gets to me when people like play. Like, I get having to play for it towards the end of the game, but like if your whole strategy is I'm gonna play the entire game for the clock, it's like, no.
Yeah, I've had people with like ADHD moments too. Like, again, not to be disparaging, you know, some people like, you know, just legitimately just like lose lose track of like what's going on and
Right.
stuff. But like, on more than one occasion I've had an opponent ask me, it's like, oh, or they tried to pull up small talk with me, like while I'm thinking on my own turn about like how to navigate the sports state. It's like, oh, where'd you get those sleeves from? Those are really cool. Or like, oh, hey, where'd you fly in from? It's like, I came from Kansas. I drove like 4 hours to get here. I'm like, yeah, cool story, bro. It's like we could have done this chit chat like before or after the match, but you decide to do it.
I like doing
while
it
I'm trying to
before
figure
the
out
match.
this story. Yeah.
That's usually like while me and my opponent are setting up. It's like, oh, how'd you get here? Where'd you come from? How was your flight or your drive?
Yeah. That's
high roll
fine.
works for you.
Yeah.
Dice roll, and then like while we're shuffling, have some small talk. But like,
Not while I'm
when we're
thinking,
playing, we're
though.
playing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not here to talk about Kansas.
Yeah.
Look, I'm glad that Milwaukee has wonderful weather this time of year, but like, we're not in Milwaukee. We're in somewhere else playing a regional, man.
Dude, I'm this close to like no longer playing with my Straw Hat Don, because like on more than one occasion I've had people ask me, oh man, that's so cool, you have the full set of Straw Hat Don, like while I'm in like mid-match like thinking about my play, and I'm like, dude, shut up. It's like, yeah, I get it, my Don are awesome, but like this is not the time.
The stat buff Don.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
a funny.
like-
We'll talk about those later if we get to it. But I had someone that didn't realize that they weren't English yet, and I had to explain to them where they came from. They're like, "Oh, that's crazy." So that was a good time. But
Oh man.
oh, dude, there's just so much. Going back to the wasting time thing, I just remembered, dude. When someone like takes a life and they sit there looking at it for too long, like trying to decide if they want to trigger it, even if it's not a trigger, like if they're trying to bluff it, it's just like, just don't waste my time. You're gonna trigger it or you're not. Like, there's not a situation like, if I have like 4 attacks left and you see a beige, you're gonna trigger the beige. You're not gonna be like, yeah, this 2k in my hand goes crazy.
Or like someone playing like a red deck, it's like, do I trigger this red beam for the plus 1k? It's like,
Do you need it? Do you have a Dawn open? Make a choice. Don't eat the clock.
Or no, I think it's even worse. It's like when people like, yeah, it's like when people like flip up a non-trigger in their life, and they're like spending like an exorbitant amount of time to like try to fake me out into thinking it's like, oh, it's a trigger, but he decided not to use it, so what could he be sandbagging? It's like,
Well, it's like, especially in like decks where you like are unlikely to get a trigger anyway. Like, obviously it's not the case anymore, but like back in RP Law when they had like Missile Sunday as a trigger body, like, you're not gonna look at your life, see it's a Missile Sunday, and then think on it for like 30 seconds and be like, yeah, I'm gonna not trigger this, right? Like, if I have like 7 Dawn because I've been using like Kid to get my Dawn back, or I've made like a Kid Sachi Penguin play to like re-ramp back, it's like, you're not gonna not trigger Missile Sunday to like draw a card. Like, why would you put it in your hand? You don't want to go to 10 Dawn.
yeah.
Like, come on, man.
Oh gosh.
Like, you and me both know how this is going down.
I guess
Like, that's the only trigger in that deck. It's like, come on.
yeah. Dude, I guess this podcast is really more so going to be titled, it's like, why you should not waste time in a tournament.
I mean, some of them isn't like, I guess a big one of mine that doesn't have to do with time is like hygiene. Like, please don't go to an event
Yeah.
smelling like you crawled out of a dumpster, like covered in grime and dirt. Like, please show the bare minimum of cleanliness.
Yeah, and I get it. It's like people have varying levels of, how would I say, availability to, to clean up and stuff. Maybe depending on like what you're doing for your job, or like the amount of time you have to get from like your job to locals. And I get it, but there are steps we can take, right? Maybe having deodorant in your car, having
Right.
like a fresh shirt to change into. Yeah, dude, it's like
Have like cologne or perfume, whichever you prefer.
yeah,
Just like something, right? Like, maybe like if you didn't have a chance to brush your teeth, for example, like have a mint in your car or something, right? Like, just something so that the experience is pleasant for everyone, because, and I guess I can't speak for everyone because some people just like are fine with whatever they're like, right? But like everyone wants to have like as pleasant an experience as possible. Like if you feel clean, you're going to like have less impact on your gameplay, or like have less, you'll feel better, right? I don't know how to describe this, but like,
yeah, to me, if you're going to locals or regional, just any in-person tournament, there's like the social contract, right? I watched another podcast from Tulare Community College with Pleasant Kenobi where they're talking about this exact thing. You're in a public setting, it's a public event, there's like that social contract to like maintain a minimal level of hygiene. And like honestly, like a lot of stores nowadays are enforcing that kind of rule. Like even our own locals actually has that rule to an extent, right? Now I get it, some people just, like everyone has like their own different body types and whatnot, but again, there are steps that I believe most, if not everyone, can take to at least get to that minimum level of cleanliness, right? Because and this issue is just not unique to the One Piece card game either.
Exactly.
We see it in every other community, like just every other card game, even just like the fighting game community, like any community for that matter.
Just like any like community where people socialize and gather, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It even happens at like conventions. Like Colin and I love going to anime conventions,
conventions,
but like just like take a bare minimum of the social contract, right? Like you are in a public space, you should not be presenting yourself in a way that is disparaging to your self-image or to like your public face, right? Like, yeah, no matter where you are, right? Like even if you're grocery shopping, like try to be like reasonably presentable, right? Like I'm not saying don't, like you have to be in like like a dress shirt or something, or like a polo, just like shorts, a t-shirt, some deodorant on, like you're fine, right?
Like clean clothes too.
Clean, like, yeah. Like don't go wearing your like sweaty gym clothes that you've like worked out in 3 times, like,
yeah, or like the t-shirt that like, for some of y'all, I know this is like your 3rd or 4th time wearing that shirt this week, and like you've never washed it up to this point.
It's like be presentable. That's all I'm asking, man. Like,
yeah,
I'm not telling you to like come out like you're having a meeting with the president or something, right? Or like the prince of, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not telling you to like
Europe.
I'm not telling you to dress business casual because we're going to like a work event or anything. Like, yeah, we're just coming to play cards, but come on, like I would prefer it if, my nostrils weren't attacked.
Assaulted.
Yeah.
And battered.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's like in every community, especially like the anime conventions, the gaming community, like in all different facets. It's just the one thing that we have in common that just gives us a bad rep, and it's just like, come on, like
we're better than this, man.
Yeah, like
don't look. There's a bare minimum, right? Like,
yeah,
like we were saying with the like too little or too much communication. There's like too little or too much cleanliness. Like, I'm not telling you to show up to your regionals in a full business suit, decked to the nines. Like,
if you
that's
want to,
too
that's
much.
fine, I guess.
I mean, if you want to, no one's gonna like hate on you for it. Like, you'll look spiffy, but like, it's going to be very hot in there. You showing up in a business jacket's not gonna be nice for you. But like, just there's a minimum, right? Like, just be presentable.
Yeah.
Like,
or be careful with the amount of cologne. If you like, for dudes out there, if you're using cologne, or I guess women too potentially, but I guess perfume is the other equivalent. Be careful how much you're using too. Like, don't just like cake it all on and go in expecting that everything's gonna be fine. If you smell very strongly one way or another, it's
bad.
no bueno. Like, especially as for someone like me that like has like I have like a very sensitive sense of smell. It's like people that, especially like cheap cologne, people that use a lot of cologne. Like we actually have a buddy like this. I'm like I can't be next to you. I'll legitimately get nauseated. And you know, some people that goes even further as far as like allergies and stuff too. It's like some people are just like very sensitive to specific chemicals. So just, you know, please be very conscientious of, you know, how you're presenting yourself, and also more importantly like how you're affecting the people that are next to you. Because again, like we're in tournaments, especially like the bigger ones, we're in a confined space, shoulder to shoulder potentially. So just be very conscientious of that.
Like we're not in like a middle school locker room, man. We don't have to smell the axe from a mile away.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm talking about. I guess what else gets to me?
I guess the last thing for me is just general etiquette, like before and after a game, or particularly after a game, and this is specific to being, you know, being a sore winner and a sore loser, right? Just try not to be that guy, please. You know, there's always, there's always that one person that's like kind of the sore winner, right? They win a game and then they brag about it. It's like, oh, I still had all these cards, or you know, my deck is just better than yours. Things like that. The One Piece community, now granted, in the One Piece community, like everyone's been so good to me that like I can't think of a specific time this has happened. Other card games,
I remember one time it happened to you. I don't know if you want me to talk about it, but I remember
go for it. I don't remember.
So what was it? Was it the? I think it was the Kissimmee Regional, and your opponent guarded wrong. And he's like, "Oh no, I messed up. Oh no." And then he drew for a turn. And he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so lucky. You lose. I'm so sorry. Oh my god, I'm so lucky." And they cleared your board, and you were like, "Come on, man."
Well, it was like a person playing Uta, and then he accidentally like pitched his "I'm invincible" like.
Yeah, he pitched his "I'm invincible" to untap something with his Uta blocker.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Why?"
It turns out he needed it later on to like actually kill me, because I wiped his board, and like I'm at 1 life. He like literally all he has is his leader left, and he like draws for turn. Yeah. I had no blocker. I had basically no cards in hand. I basically just said, "I see 3 I'm invincibles in your graveyard. You better be playing the 4th somehow, and you better top deck it right now." And then he top decks it. He's like, "Oh my god, I'm the luckiest person alive." And then he just like waves it in front of me like this, and I'm like,
he also like apologized to you and then said, "I'm so lucky, you lose the game," and then apologized to you again. I'm like, dude, why are you apologizing?
I'm like, just get it over with. Just come on. Like I'm already tilted from this. Like just like like this is already something that's like very unlikely that was very bad for me. So like just get it over with, please. Don't like try to don't
overcomplicate
things. Yeah.
You don't have to over milk the cow, man. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is like if someone wants to talk about the game to like see if there was something that could have happened differently or like worked out, I'm more than happy to like talk about it with them after the game, like, and I like kind of want that in return. That's like my thing of like sportsman like behavior at like being not a sore loser or a sore winner. Like I've had a number of people talk with me so that we could try and figure out what line they had that could have won them the game. Not necessarily that they would win, but like it gives them a higher chance than what they did,
yeah,
right?
Like whatever's more promising for
yeah,
future
exactly.
reference,
And we'll like talk it through and we'll like give them their options. But like sometimes your opponent's just like, "No man, you just like had it all," and they like throw their cards into their box and they walk away. And it's like, all right, man, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to.
We have we have like this really funny saying in our group: "If card was card, right? Oh, if my card was something else, I would have won." It's like, well, you didn't. So
yeah, your card was.
If my card was this like very specific one-of that I only play in my deck that I can't search or whatever, but if I had it in hand, I would have won. It's like, cool.
If 7 turns ago, If 7 turns ago this finger pistol was a Guzan, he would have been cooked.
Or if like, or even something. even something as simple as like, oh, if this 1K counter in my hand was a 2K instead, I would have gotten there. It's like, sure, and I can like, it's like, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to make me feel bad for winning? Are you trying to tell me that I didn't play the match well? That, oh, I just lucked out, I don't deserve my win? It's like, come on, dude. It's like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Are you trying like? The way I see it is like, yeah, but you play that card because it's good. Like, you're not gonna, like, especially like, for example, like a black yellow Luffy player. Like, if they're like, if this 5-cost Sabo in my hand was a 2K, I would have won. And I'm like, yeah, but you'd never cut 5-cost Sabo from your deck and not play 3 of that card.
It's like, sure,
it's like you would have changed it into a 2K, so it's irrelevant.
Yeah, like, sure, it might have been unfortunate that it was a Sabo instead of being the 2K that you needed in that specific scenario, but it's like, that's life, right? We're playing a card game. Card games have variance, you know? It's like, there's no need to like over-explain. It's like, oh, you know, if I was just a little bit luckier, I would have won. It doesn't do anything productive, the way I see it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar thing for me with like again, and this isn't to rag on anyone or rag on a deck or something, but for me, it's like similar with like people playing Bonnie. Like, they look at their hand, it has an even number of Dofi Pirates and it has an even number of Supernovas, and they have both searchers. It's like, which one do you do first? And the first one they play, he's like all opposites, and they're like, if only I played the other one first. Like, it doesn't matter. You
don't know. Yeah.
You don't know. There was an equal chance.
Yeah.
Like, he could have just as easily flipped 5 the other way.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like,
it's
you
like,
don't have control over that.
Yeah, it's like, of course hindsight's 20/20. It's like, you know, it is what it is.
It's like, if only I searched the other way first. It's like, well, I mean, you just took an educated guess. It doesn't, you don't have control, man. Like, that's variance.
Like, I've had people, this is a personal pet peeve of mine, is that even to go further with being a sore loser, not even necessarily being a sore loser, but just when people try to over justify why they lost. It's like, oh, on turn 3 I didn't draw this specific card, or like, oh, I sub optimized this thing and that thing and that thing, if I did this better you would have lost, etc., etc. And like, they just keep going and going. Like, I'm sure you've had opponents like that, right, Mohammed? Maybe not in one
personally
piece, but...
had moments like that. I wouldn't go to the extent of saying you would have lost, but it's like, my thing is like, if I see a spot where I've messed up, I'll vocalize it so that I can remember it the next time, because I'm much more of like a vocal/physical type of learner. So like, for example, if like on a turn, instead of playing what I played, I should have like made a value play instead of making a clear play in Rabluchi, for example. This was something I was very bad at in Sakazuki when I was first playing Sakazuki, is I always thought that I'd have to remove their board every single turn, when in reality I should have just like played my like value cards, like played my Kuzan on 4 instead of playing my removal on 4 to like
unblaze my brain, you
Sparrow.
punch your face.
Yeah, it's like, like, I was always like, yeah, I'll just kill their thing so that it doesn't hit me. And it's like, well, if I established the Kuzan on turn 4, I would have seen an extra card to not take the hit anyway, and then I could have used the Kuzan to like contest their board for the rest of the game. And like, that's something I struggled to learn. And like, I'd vocalize that so I'd remember it for the next match. But I'd never be like, yeah, you would have lost, I would have won, it was all on me. But it's like, yeah, the game, I'd just like say like, hey, I'd just like vocalize that. I wouldn't even like be doing it because my opponent's there. I'm like, I should have done X, Y, and Z. That would have given me a better chance of winning this game. And then my opponent will be like, no, it wouldn't have mattered. And I'm like, I guess. I don't know, but...
That to me is also being a sore winner, when you're just like being very dismissive of like your opponent that was trying to start a dialogue of like what they could have done better, etc.
Right, like that's I like the dialogue. That's like, I want people to improve, and that's what I'm here for. And I'm always open if my opponents ever try to initiate, because it's like, I want them to like get better, right? Like that's what I like to see in the community, is see people grow. But it's like, some people just don't want that, and I think like it's kind of gatekeepy. I guess that's a pet peeve of mine. I don't want to gatekeep this game from people. I want everyone to like try and grow and learn and have a good time. And if you don't want to like improve, that's like fine. Like, if you just want to play your fun decks, then go for it, man. That's for everyone to do. We have a buddy that loves Foxy, so he's just gonna keep playing it, and I love him to bits. He's just having a good time. He loves the slow
Freaking
beam.
Tommy. Hey, he was like the hero at Gen Con. It's like,
He
honestly,
was the hero
like,
at Gen Con.
It's like you and
you
I
heard
like,
about a Foxy at Gen Con. That was
Yeah.
our boy Tommy Saint.
Yeah, like you and I each like got prize cards out of our own individual events. Like I got it from the Treasure Cup, you got it from the regional. But you know who the actual hero was that weekend? It was Tommy. It's like, who was coming up, out of our group? Who was like, how many people were coming up to us? 0. How many people came up to Tommy and be like, "Hey, bro, you like awesome job
Dude,
with the Foxy."
he
literally
was
a million
the talk
people
of Gen Con.
Yeah.
I heard so many groups being like, "Bro, I lost to Foxy," and then the dude's homies are like, "How did you lose to Foxy?" And then he just tell this like massive tale of how his black yellow Luffy deck folded to 3/7 cost Foxys on the table.
I couldn't
He's
beat
like,
it
my
either.
Moryu was swinging for 6, it never connected.
Yeah. When we were testing, I was testing BY Luffy into it. I never beat it either. Like BY Luffy surprisingly has a very bad matchup into Foxy. But dude, it was like throughout the convention, and even when we were at the airport, and other One Piece players were still coming up to Tommy and being like, "Hey, it's the Foxy guy," He's the actual hero.
Yeah, he loves that deck. He's having a good time. He was the talk of the town. I'm so happy for him. But it's just like that. At the end of the day, I just want people to have fun, man. It's just like again, pet peeves aside, this game is great. This game is beautiful. The community is really good. It's just like these are just things that irk us, man.
Yeah, it's just like an accumulation of small things that irk us. Not that it like spoils the experience,
Yeah,
so to
no,
speak.
it's
but,
like-
it's just things that I think are mostly relatable. Maybe like not even if you're just playing the One Piece card game. If you're playing Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, the hygiene thing, I'm sure definitely happens. I've been there. Trust me. Like, I played all those card games.
Like, will my day
there's
be
always
ruined
somebody
by these? No.
Yeah.
But like, will I be like mildly upset for a little bit? Probably.
Well, it does. I mean, especially with like the
Upset's a
sore
strong
winner.
word.
I think especially with the sore winner, sore loser stuff, that does kind of spoil the experience for me to an extent.
A little bit. I'll give
like-
you that.
Well, it's like, dude, it's like I flew all the way out here. I spent good money to like get this hotel to like, well, more importantly, to like wake up in time to freaking sign up on the online to get my ticket for this.
Wake up
regional.
early, sign up, buy your plane ticket, buy your hotel. It's just
yeah,
like it all adds
exactly.
up. Like I chose to come here. Like,
It's
come
like,
on,
yeah.
man.
It's like, obviously the price is lucrative. I get it. Prize cards go for thousands of dollars. I understand that firsthand, right? But at the end of the day, even the top players, like I'm sure even someone like Cross or Jonas, not that I want to speak for them necessarily, but they're here for the love of the game as well. It's like, come on. It's like, why do you need a, why do you need to kill the vibe, right?
Right. And again, we can't speak on their behalf, but like a lot of these players flew to Japan for World Finals even when they weren't playing because they just loved the game. They wanted to be there with their homies, right? Like that's what the game's all about, right? It's just like having a good time with the friends, the fam, the boys, the girls, the crew.
It's like, I get it, maybe your opponent wasn't the best to you, maybe they weren't being the most respectful because maybe they're committing some of these other pet peeves that we talked about earlier in the podcast, but there's still like this level of respect. Just try to be cordial, be the bigger person, right? I think that's how the saying goes. Just take your losses in grace, take your wins in grace as well. Just
what's it's like humble in victory. I don't remember the other half of it. I just know it starts with humble in victory. I think it's humble in victory, gracious in defeat.
Something like that.
Yeah, humble in victory, gracious in defeat.
Yeah, it's just
It's
like,
like-
everyone's here to have fun. Just don't spoil the mood. It's like, I get it. It was a tough loss. Maybe it was your winning in to get into like day 2, but it's just it doesn't do anything productive to like make your opponent feel bad about when you're losing. And I get it. Not everyone maybe sees those sort of like social cues, but just make like, I guess, try to give your best effort to watch out for it, right? Like, try to, if you win a match, try to watch out for your opponent's like disposition. It's like, you know, do they want to have a conversation after? Are they very distraught? You know, and that it can be for like a multitude of reasons, and it's okay. You know, leave them be, right? It's fine. Like for me, for example, it's like I make it a habit nowadays where the handshake or fist bump at the end of the match, I never really offer when I'm the winner, but if I'm the loser, I'll always like offer the handshake or the fist bump. Like usually if I'm the winner, I try to like let my opponent be the one to like offer the handshake, if that makes sense.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I don't know. I don't go that deep. I offer it regardless of win or lose, because I feel like at the end of the day, we're just playing a game we love, right? Like,
yeah, I guess I just had so many bad experiences in like previous card games where it's like they're like literally like shoo me away, and I'm like,
I haven't had that happen a single time yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's a community diff. Shout out to the One Piece community. Y'all are goated.
Yeah, honestly, like, I've never had it that bad to the point, like, anyone that salty or, like, that distraught. Everyone's actually been really, like, I'm just trying to think of, aside from, like, the very specific times that happened, which, again, it wasn't even intentional from the other person, I don't think. Like, the vast majority of the time I've been playing this game for the past year now, competitively, basically all of my opponents have been very, you know, like, very reasonable people. Like, you know, even when I get a very lucky win, it's like, oh, I'm playing Katakuri, I'm sorry, I got the Bastion last life, you know? And they're like, oh, man, that sucks. Well, that's frustrating, but, you know, they still say, like, oh, man, that sucks, but, like, you know, good luck in the rest of your matches. Yeah. Or maybe we'll start that dialogue of, like, hey, you know, if I swung for 7 at your Paraspero there, would you have given it? Would that have been better? You know, could I have maybe navigated this a little bit better? Like, as unfortunate as, like, specific events like me flipping a base at a life can be, they still try to start that dialogue. I've had that happen so many times, and that's something I very, very much respect out of the community.
Right. I feel that one. It's just like it's so welcoming, right? Like, I haven't had someone come to the community and just like get shunned or get like thrown to the wolves to like fend for themselves and like figure it out. Like, people are very willing to like teach or help people experience or learn. It's usually never like it's not very, I keep using the term, but it's not very gatekeepy, right? Like, a lot of the people that play this game are like very willing to help each other out.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like, to an extent that I legitimately, and again, anecdotal, but I feel like I have not felt in other card games, like Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Pokemon. It's like, I've never gotten that sense to that extent of like everyone in the community is like trying to help each other improve, which I get it, like, happens in all the communities, right? But it's just the One Piece community, especially in my experience, has been that way, which I'm very grateful for. Which is why we're making content on this, because it's like, you know, pet peeves about Yu-Gi-Oh, pet peeves about Magic, like, you know, we can go on and on. And like, honestly, that kind of content's already been done for ages, I feel like.
Boy, do I have pet peeves in like every game.
Yeah. But with that being said, guys, I think that's pretty much it. You know, if you made it to the end here, thank you so much for watching. As always, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know in the comments down below, what are your pet peeves in this card game? Or do you have any horror stories? Or the opposite? What is the opposite of horror stories? Like, success stories, I guess, with the community.
Pleasant surprise. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Joyful experiences.
Yeah, mix the positive and the negative. You know, we like to hear both sides. Hopefully it's more positive. But yeah, that'll be it, guys. This has been the It Connects podcast episode. I forget, it's like 6 or 7. But
I was gonna say 7 or 8. So
there's 7 or 8. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, it's been long enough. See you guys.
Take it easy, guys.